Hey everyone, today in this video I'm going to be going over Chat Suite with Adalo. What this allows you to do is to have conversations, messages, create conversations, and also see who is in that chat information, all within components built by Adalo. So let's take a look at it in action, and then we will take a look at how it's set up in the builder. So let's take a look at the preview here. Right now I have no conversations, and this is something that actually can be customized. It doesn't always have to say no conversations. So I'm going to start a conversation. I have my list of users here. Let's say I want to talk with Karen. If you'll notice, when I click Karen's name, I now have a start conversation button. I can press start conversation, and now I'm directly into that conversation with Karen. So I can say, hey, Karen, and send that message. And if you notice, my logged in user messages are on the right. If Karen were to send me a message, her messages would be on the left. I can also click the plus button and add a photo here. So let me find the Adalo logo, and we'll send that to her because she was asking me about it. And I will click send. And now my Adalo logo is in the messages as well. But what if I need to send a website or web link? I can just go to adalo.com and send this to Karen. And now this message is clickable and it goes to adalo.com. And then if I need to see who all is in the message, I can click this information button and see that it's Karen and myself. I can remove Karen because I started the message, I'm the owner of it, or I can leave the message myself here as well. And let's take a look at, so that's Karen. And now let's start a message with multiple people. Let's do, see, Karen, Julia, Hannah. We'll just start a group message. We're just going to name this test group. And then let's go back to that Adalo logo again, grab that. So here's our Adalo logo. That's going to be our group image, and I'm going to start that conversation. So now I can have my test group and I can say, hey group, and the messages and things will flow in the same way. If I go to my conversations list, I can see that I've got it named test group, the last message and the time that it was sent. And since I'm logged in as Kyle, I see Karen's name. But if Karen was logged in, she would see Kyle's name here. And this is all built with these components. And so let's take a look at how it's built and the setup of it. And it's going to be really simple for you. Okay, so let's go to the builder. The first screen you'll notice is a conversation screen. This screen is going to be the screen that houses the thread titles or the conversation's name. And let's look how you set that up. You have different sections within the conversation list, and this component is just called conversation list. And the first thing you want to do when you open it up is you want to define the logged in user ID, and you can do this via magic text and do logged in user ID. You're going to select your conversations database, and we'll go over database in a second, but we have the conversations database, and then you can do all kinds of things with this. You can do the logged in user conversations, you can sort it however you want to, whatever you'd like. Then you come in here and match the conversation fields. The database setup here is really important because this helps identify which user to present to the logged in user. So for example, when I started this conversation with Karen, I was user number 1 and Karen was user number 2. And I can show you that on the database. I can show you that my user ID is 6 and my username is Kyle B. I don't have an image here, and then Karen's user ID was 16. And so you just map out those fields within the conversation fields. So you use your magic text, you use user ID 1, you'll go user name, you'll do user image URL. You click here for the read by, and I'll explain that in a second. Grab that text, user ID 2, same, just follow the prompts here, and you match with the database setup. And text 1 and text line 2, they can be whatever you want to. Typically, you'll have either the last message sent or the date, and then that will be sufficient. And then on the click actions, what I like to do is I update the conversation. And so I grab the read by, and I do the current read by, comma, and then whatever user ID. What that allows is when the user ID for the logged in user is in this thread here and separated via commas so that the numbers don't get mixed up, this blue dot will show. If the blue dot is not there, that means that I've already read that and my user ID is in this read by. And I can show you that in the conversations. So let's take a look at the one with me and Karen again. If you notice my read by, my ID for this user is 6. And that's just an ID that's assigned by Adalo. It doesn't change. So that's the safest one to know. And then if Karen were to click in here, it would look something like this. It would say comma 16 comma, and then this component is smart enough to know that number 6 has read this and number 16 has read this, and to display that based on what information is in that field. So that is the conversation field. And then I just do a simple link to the messages, and this gets the current conversation over to the screen, which is really important. And then, of course, you can come in here and change the styles of the names. You can bold them, make them larger. You can change the badge color if you want it to be red. You can change how big the avatar is, the row height. You can change the badge size. You can even show it on the left of the avatar. You might want it on the avatar. Whatever your preference is there, you can just work with that. So that is setting up the conversation on the home screen for this particular app. Let's talk about how to start the conversation. In the top app bar, this is just Adalo's regular app bar, I put a plus sign here, and I did two things. I created the conversation and made it a draft, which if you go back to look here, you can add a filter here that says the draft needs to be false. When I created the conversation, I made this draft to be true, so that as I'm creating this draft, if I finish creating the draft, then it won't show up in this list until I'm finished creating that conversation. And then I'm going to link to create conversation. And if you notice, the current conversation is now available over here. So this component is called Start Conversation. There are two different components in the marketplace you can do where you can have this list be separate and this button be separate. But for visual needs and to make it look nice, I just combine them together to make it even easier for you. But there could be circumstances where you might want them separate. So again, you'll just fill this out. You'll get the logged in user ID. You'll select a list of users, and you can filter this list of users by however you want to. Is it users who are admins? Is it users who are in a group? Whatever your preference is there, and sort them however you want to. And then this next section is called Find Existing Conversations. This is important because this component is smart enough, if you set the conversation correctly, to know when, if you select a person, if there is an existing conversation, or if you select a group of people, if that conversation exists already. That way you don't have duplicate conversations. And it's really simple. If you follow the database setup that's in our help docs, you would go to conversations, and you would filter the conversations by conversation key, and that conversation key is going to equal the start conversation component selected user IDs, and then that puts it in the proper form. And let me show you what the conversation key looks like for the conversation. So for example, this conversation key with myself and Karen is 6,16. What this component does is as you click each user, it grabs the user ID and sorts it from smallest to largest. That way you can never have a duplicate conversation key. There will always be sorted from smallest to largest, and then we can recognize that that is an existing key. So if this is a brand new conversation, you've already got a conversation over here, so you just need to update it. You want to add the logged in user as part of the users, and then you can just fill this out. This is the logged in user ID. This is the logged in user full name, since you're the owner. The user one is considered the owner of the conversation. With the user ID, you want to grab that from the start conversation user ID. This is so if you click on a user and then deselect them and reselect someone else, and it's just a one-on-one conversation, this user ID too is stored within this component, so that you have the correct information in here at all times. And then click name, you'll grab the image, image URL here, and then you're going to grab the start conversation, the group name here, and then you want to grab the conversation key, which is at the start conversation selected user. Then I like to grab the total users that are in here, and then you want to mark the conversation as draft as false. That way you can have it displayed if you have it filtered that way. And then you just simply link to messages. And then the next thing that you want to do is copy these actions and paste these actions onto, if you want to start the group conversation with an image, just to constraints on how images are loaded and things like that. We had to do this as a separate action, but you would just paste these actions and then get the grab the start conversation group image. That way it would show the image and then link the messages. User fields, this is going to be pretty self-explanatory. The user ID is the current user ID, so you would just grab that there. You would grab the full name here, the avatar, the image URL if you want to. And then line two, for this example, I did user email and user ID, but think of this as maybe like title, company, that type of deal. And then when selected, you want to update the conversation and add the current user to this current conversation. And when you deselect them, you just want to remove the current user from the conversation. And then we're going to continue the conversation setup. Remember, we did this filter, all conversations, conversation key is equal to the users that have been selected here. We just want to grab that conversation ID. So we would just do current conversation ID, and then we would link to messages. And that way, when I select users who I already have a conversation with, instead of saying start conversation, it will say continue conversation, and I can continue that conversation. So let me show you how that works. So Karen Mills, I'm going to go ahead and start a new conversation. I'm going to say Karen, and if you notice, it says continue conversation. And when I click here, I now have all those messages that I had started with Karen. And the button style, you can change the name, colors, you can do height, you can do all that kind of fun stuff. You can change the styles here, you can do the search bar, whatever you'd like. But that would be how you start the conversation. So now we have a list of conversations. We've started the conversations. Now we're into the messages screen. And for the messages screen, you're going to want to grab this new header bar called chat header bar. And the reason this is important is because just like the conversations, if I'm logged in and I have a message with Karen, I see Karen's name, but if Karen is logged in, she sees Kyle's name. That's what this chat bar does for this particular screen. So it's just setting up similar to the other components. I'm going to grab the logged in user ID, and then I'm going to grab the user ID of the current conversation, user ID 1, user name, image, user 2 name, user 2 image, group name, all the same stuff from before. And that way I can see the proper name of that conversation. And then left action button, I always try to link back to my conversation screen. And then the right button is linked to chat info. That'll be important in just a second. And then you can change the colors and the icons, whatever you want to do there. Let's focus on this message screen, which is really nice. This is a collection of messages. You want to grab the current conversation messages, and I like to sort from oldest to newest so that the newest message is always at the bottom. When you go to this screen, it'll always be at the bottom, and you can scroll up, which is really nice. And then you just create your parameters. So we're going to create a message on when we send the icon. We're going to do everything except the image here. So we're going to do the message text, which is in the chat message here. The sender ID is the logged in user full name, logged in user profile image URL, and then the current conversation that assigns it to that conversation. And then I like to update the conversation here. This will be the last message time. So the message that was sent, the last message, the new message, and then I put in my read by. You want to just clear this out and just have a comma and then logged in user ID. And then I copied those and then did another one for the image. And then if you want to have images, you can do selected images here. And then you can do other things like on message tab, you can click and send users other places. On image tab, you might want to click that. That might bring up a modal that you want to make the image full screen. There are lots of different things that you can do there. And then you'll set up the image template. The current message, the sender ID is the current message sender ID. The sender avatar name, similar to before. The reason why you want to set this sender ID field up is that will help determine whether the messages you see are on the right or the left. So if the message that you've sent, then they will be on the right. And if there's a message other people have sent, it'll be on the left. And then you can actually change that if you want to make that the opposite. If you want mine to be on the left and theirs to be on the right, you can do that. And then you can only have text messages if you want to, but if you want to do images as well, you can do that. Then you can just, change the styling here. change the bubbles, that kind of thing, whatever your preferences are. You can change the colors and change the input messages, the icons, all that kind of fun stuff. So that is the messages. And then the last part of our chat suite is the chat information. And so if you remember in this right button, we link to chat info. That is this information. What this component does is it grabs a list of users and then shows the current conversation users. And then from here, you'll fill this out like we did before. You know, what is the member's name, their subtitle, their image URL, their member ID, and then you can have separate row click actions if you want. And then if you want to remove them, you can just click update the conversation, remove that current user, and that removes them from the group. And then you can do conversation settings. You want to just set this up like we were. The logged in user is going to be the logged in user ID. The owner is going to be the current conversation user one ID and group name here, and then group image. And you can change the header here. You can do all kinds of different things. The last thing on here for the actions, it as an admin, you can leave the group if you want to, and then you can link home, and then you can update the group name here as well, just within the component. And you would do that just where it says on group name save, and then on group image save, you'll grab that information here. And let me just show you how that looks. Since I'm the admin of the group, that user ID 1, I can click the information button and I can change the test group to whatever I want to, and then I can click here and adjust the image as well. And so that's a brief overview, quick overview of all of the chat suite components. If you're keeping score at home, it's comprised of the conversation list, the chat header bar, the chat message list, the start conversation, and the chat group info. And once you have all those in your builder, you have those set up, you will be able to do an easy flow with chat. Before I go, I do want to talk about Adalo and the database setup. And so you can go to our help docs and you can go to screens and components, marketplace components, and you can go to our chat suite, and you can do chat database setup. And you can follow this guide and set the database up how you would like to match here. Or since we have Ada now, you can actually click and copy this and go to the builder and just copy this straight into Ada and hit send, and Ada will set the database up for you, which is fantastic. So I would highly recommend that. That way your database properties all look the same that I showed, and that it's easy to match within the components. Best of luck with building your app.